Pompeo also reveals Kim Jong-un has personally told him that the North will abandon its nukes. President Moon Jae-in is in Malaysia for the start of a three-day state visit. We have the rundown of the South Korean leader's schedule from our correspondent in Kuala Lumpur. Plus, the number of newly added jobs in South Korea hits its highest figure in 13 months. But despite the pickup, the number of unemployed also increased, with the jobless rate at 4.7% in February, a 9-year high for that month. Our top story this morning, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is calling on North Korea to act on its pledge to dismantle its nuclear weapons program. The top American diplomat also revealed the North Korean leader has told him face-to-face several times that he would denuclearize his regime. Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
Holding a wave of interviews in Texas, where he's set to attend an energy conference, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo fielded a number of questions on North Korea and the failed summit talks in Hanoi. Pompeo said it was time for North Korea to act on its pledge to dismantle its nuclear weapons program, saying talk is cheap and the most important thing is action on the promises made to the U.S. Despite the tough talk, Pompeo said he felt hopeful about the months ahead. Pompeo also took the opportunity to reveal that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had told him face-to-face, quote, no less than half a dozen times that he would denuclearize. In a separate interview, Pompeo credited international sanctions on Pyongyang for bringing Kim to the table. He says one of the ways that Washington can convince North Korea to move towards denuclearization is to reduce the amount of energy they can import. He added that U.S. and UN sanctions have made a material difference. Regarding reports North Korea is rebuilding a key missile facility and could be preparing another rocket launch, Pompeo only emphasized the progress he's seen since the two sides began talks. He reiterated the North hasn't conducted any further missile tests, no more nuclear testing, two important tools for advancing their program. Pompeo also sounded confident about U.S. defense readiness on the peninsula, despite President Trump's scaling back of major military exercises between the allies, citing the financial cost and damage they do to North Korea diplomacy. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
A South Korea-US working group session is set to be held in Washington on Thursday local time to coordinate various issues related to North Korea. Seoul's foreign ministry says the work group session will allow the allies to assess the recent trends seen in inter-Korean and North Korea-US relations. The two sides are also expected to discuss denuclearization and inter-Korean cooperation. The South Korean delegation will be led by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Peace, Diplomacy, Planning Team Director Lee Dong-ryol. President Moon Jae-in's state visit to Malaysia begins today. The president will sit down with the leaders of the Southeast Asian country on this Wednesday as he seeks promises on expanding bilateral cooperation on multiple fronts. Our Shin Se-min, who is travelling with the president, files this report from Kuala Lumpur.
President Moon Jae-in's stay in Malaysia will open with an official welcoming ceremony, becoming the first foreign leader to be hosted by Sultan Abdullah since his ascension to the throne earlier this year. President Moon will be greeted and welcomed by Malaysia's leader. He will then go into a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad for talks on bilateral, regional, and international issues of mutual concern. Sitting down with the Sultan of Abdullah of Pahang and Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, President Moon will witness the signing of 4 memorandums of understanding, which includes deals relating to the 4th Industrial Revolution, as well as smart city development and cooperation in the halal industry. On Tuesday, President Moon attended an event in Kuala Lumpur where he noted the Hallyu wave and Malaysia's halal certification industry will bring about a synergy effect in various ways.
한국과 말레이시아가 협력하여 공동 진출한다면 서로가 윈윈하는 경제 협력의 새로운 모델이 될 수 있을 것입니다.
With the help of Malaysian government's world-exclusive halal certification process, President Boon hopes to drive up bilateral trade between the two countries past last year's $18 billion. Hopping from one ASEAN member state to another, the South Korean leader is working to speed up his pivot to the region and diversify Korea's trade. The focus here in Malaysia is high-tech and halal. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Kuala Lumpur.
Now, delivering a speech to represent the National Assembly's smallest negotiating body, the floor leader of the minor opposition Bareunmirae party has stressed the importance of reforming politics, the economy and the livelihoods of the people. Speaking at the Assembly this morning, Kim Kwan-yong highlighted the need to implement the mixed-member proportional representation system and the urgency to fast-track the proposal despite opposition from the main opposition party. He said the current administration yields too much power to the top office, adding reforms are needed especially on the appointments of personnel. Kim also said the administration's policies to abruptly increase the minimum wage is suffocating the economy, demanding a wage freeze for next year. He also urged the government to create a cross-national organisation to tackle the fine dust problem and come up with specific measures to increase the birth rate and lower the suicide rate. And the National Assembly will vote in the coming hours on non-contested bills aimed at tackling the fine dust crisis. They include bills to designate severe fine dust air pollution as a social disaster, which would allow the government to inject state money in case of an emergency. Other bills include a proposal to ease regulations on the usage of LPG vehicles, which will allow regular citizens to purchase such cars, as well as a measure that will require schools to install air purifiers in classrooms. Rival parties agreed last week to vote on bills in light of the worsening air quality. They've also called on the government to use reserve funds to provide anti-dust masks or air purifiers to the underprivileged. If necessary, lawmakers will also consider drawing up a supplementary budget. Now, let's start with Brexit. And as many had expected, Prime Minister Theresa May's divorce deal from the EU has once again been rejected by British Parliament. For more on this and other stories from around the world, let's turn to our Aram. Aram, Brexit thrown into turmoil once again.
That's right, Mark. This was the second time May's Brexit deal has been rejected. The result of Tuesday's vote was 391 to 242, a slightly slimmer margin than before, but a defeat nonetheless. MPs are still not happy about the terms, especially on the contentious Irish backstop issue. May's last-ditch talks with EU officials the day before the vote and getting what she called legally binding changes from them have ultimately failed to persuade critics. Parliament will vote now on Wednesday whether to back a no-deal Brexit. Business leaders and economists warn that leaving the EU without a deal would bring chaos to markets and supply chains. MPs vote against a MPs vote against a no-deal Brexit, then they will vote the following day on whether to seek a last-minute delay to the March 29th divorce date. May said the government would not instruct her own Conservative Party lawmakers how to vote, as would normally be the case. She also told MPs the government would announce on Wednesday details of how the UK will manage its border with Ireland in the event of a no-deal Brexit. US Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer says he sees trade talks with China entering their final weeks. He made the comments in Tuesday's testimony before the US Senate Finance Committee, but he failed to provide a firm deadline on when to end negotiations. He also said he thinks the US should keep the threat of tariffs on China open in order to enforce a trade deal. Lighthizer added that President Trump would not sign a deal unless it was enforceable. This could prove difficult as Beijing wants the threat of tariffs removed. A new study shows air pollution, including fine dust, is deadlier than smoking, resulting in approximately 9 million early deaths globally each year, according to research conducted by scientists in Germany and Cyprus, which was published in the European Society of Cardiology journal. The figure is nearly double the previous estimated 4.5 million. This is more than the deaths caused by smoking, which is estimated to hover around 7 million a year globally, according to the World Health Organization. The researchers thus called for the urgent need to stop burning fossil fuels and move to clean and renewable energy.
Thank you as always to Arirang for the world news there. Now, the number of newly employed people in South Korea in February increased by more than 260,000 on year. That's the biggest increase in 13 months. According to Statistics Korea, public sector jobs and agricultural jobs for the elderly increased sharply, while manufacturing jobs, unfortunately, they continue to fall. The number of unemployed, however, continued to increase, reaching 1.3 million people. The overall unemployment rate hit a 9-year high of 4.7% in February. The youth unemployment rate was more than double the overall jobless rate. A delegation from the International Monetary Fund has been holding its annual meetings with South Korean officials in Seoul over the past couple of weeks. Those discussions came to an end on Tuesday with the IMF Korea mission chief announcing some key findings upon the conclusion of those talks. Our economics correspondent Kim Hae-sung with the details.
An expansionary fiscal policy, accommodative monetary policy, and labor market reform. That's what the IMF Korea mission chief said Korea needs to help support its economic growth. The IMF said Korea has strong fundamentals, including skilled labor force, low public debt, and ample foreign exchange reserves, but that the local economy faces headwinds like sluggish investment, slowing global trade, and rising inequality.
To support short-term growth and contain risks, the authorities should provide more fiscal stimulus through a supplementary budget.
The IMF Korea mission chief said the Moon administration's expansionary fiscal policy is a move in the right direction. The government's budget for 2019 increased by over 9% on year to $415 billion. But with exports Korea's main driving force set to slow down amid sluggish global trade, he recommended a supplementary budget of 0.5% of its nominal GDP, or around $8 billion this year, to support growth. Korea's unemployment rate hit 4.4% in January, making it the highest figure in 9 years. To actually help promote long-term inclusive growth and create jobs, the IMF said on top of low interest rates, labor market reform is key.
Flexicurity should be adopted as a basis for labor market policies by making employment protection legislation more flexible, while further enhancing social safety nets.
The IMF said flexicurity, or the combination of flexibility with security in dealing with job market and unemployment benefits, is important to raise productivity and employment. As for economic projection, the IMF said its outlook of Korea's economic growth stands at around 2.6%, in line with Korea's finance ministry's growth projection. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
South Korea has been excluded from the European Union's grey list of countries needing close monitoring on their tax systems, a list which can seriously hurt a country's global reputation. Seoul's finance ministry says such a move is an acknowledgement of its efforts to improve fairness in its tax regime. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
The EU has confirmed its decision to remove South Korea from its tax haven blacklist, according to South Korea's Ministry of Economy and Finance. It explained the Economic and Financial Affairs Council, consisting of economic and finance ministers of EU member states, agreed Tuesday to exclude Seoul from the list of non-cooperative jurisdictions for tax purposes. The ministry also said Seoul's decision to abolish the foreign investment tax incentive system in December last year enabled the country to be removed from the list. In late 2017, the EU placed South Korea on the blacklist, citing the country's harmful preferential tax system. Also on the list were 16 other nations, including the United Arab Emirates, Mongolia, and Panama. A month later, South Korea was moved to EU's grey list of countries that need tax-related monitoring. Seoul's finance ministry says the EU's latest decision is a global recognition that South Korea is exerting efforts to satisfy the established standards, adding it will continue to improve fairness within its tax regime. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Now, former President Lee Myung-bak will appear in court for an appeal hearing in the coming hours, a week after he was released on bail. He will leave his residence in southern Seoul at around 1 p.m. Korea time and head to the Seoul High Court. However, the former chairman of Uri Financial Group, Lee Pal-sung, whose memoir played a crucial role in Lee Myung-bak's conviction on corruption and bribery charges, has refused to show up in court as one of the witnesses. South Korea will soon become one of the first in the world to launch the 5G wireless network available to each and all of us living in the country. Ahead of this game-changing occasion, South Korean telecom companies are busy showing what our everyday lives could be like with the arrival of the ultra-fast technology. Oh Soo-young reports.
Meet the world's first 5G robot barista. With South Korea set to become the first country in the world to launch the next generation 5G network, major telecom firms are unveiling new services and gadgets that could soon become a part of daily life. Powered by 5G signals 20 times faster than LTE, it doesn't take long for the robot barista to take and make your order. The robot, launched by KT Corporation, recognizes customers using voice recognition and KT's AI assistant Giga Genie. It promptly serves espresso drinks and even gives you a wave along with your order. An upgraded version at the Mobile World Congress last month served up 47 types of beverage. The company plans to improve facial recognition and AI technology to provide more customized services.
Robot baristas require cables or very stable networks, and this puts a lot of restrictions in terms of the robot's mobility. But connecting the robot to 5G enables steady connections, allowing mobility as well as the ability to take orders, CCTV features, and even stock management. This could be applied to other unmanned devices as well.
But experiencing life in 5G speed won't necessarily require stepping outside your home. From turning off the lights and switching on the AC to ordering food from the grocery store, smart home functions and gadgets are also being optimized to run on 5G, based on AI speakers which are becoming more common, with over 3 million units sold across the country last year. Meanwhile, virtual and augmented reality content will become even more realistic.
5G allows ultra-high speed and ultra-low latency transmissions, which means our unique VR and AR contents for watching professional baseball and golf games, as well as K-pop performances, will be upgraded from HD to 4K quality. Users can zoom in on gestures and facial expressions in real time.
South Korea's 3 major networks plan to simultaneously launch 5G for consumers in the coming weeks. Experts say by 2020, most Koreans will enjoy the super-fast connectivity in their daily lives. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Now, today marks the 10th deployment anniversary of the South Korean Navy's Chungha unit. The anti-piracy naval unit has been stationed in the Gulf, the Middle East region, protecting vessels and citizens off the coast of Somalia from pirates. Kan Hyung-woo reports.
Wednesday marks the 10 years since the South Korean Navy deployed the Chungha unit to the Horn of Africa. As the first South Korean unit to be deployed on a warship overseas, the anti-piracy unit with some 300 personnel has carried out a range of missions in the Gulf of Aden since 2009 to protect not only South Korean but also foreign vessels. The Chungha unit came into the spotlight in 2011 when it carried out the well-known mission Operation Dawn of the Gulf of Aden to rescue the South Korean freighter Samojurli and its 21 crew members from Somali pirates. Since then, the unit has successfully conducted a number of other rescue missions. It ensured the safety of the crew of the cargo vessel Hanjin Tianjin, sailors abducted from the tanker Gemini, and other South Koreans kidnapped by pirates in waters of Ghana as recently as last year. The Chungha unit has also expanded its role in protecting international waters, by working with the combined maritime forces and the European Union to counter piracy and terrorism. As of February this year, the Chungha unit has escorted and provided assistance to some 20,000 ships in waters off conflict-ridden Somalia and has fought off Somali pirates 21 times. The Navy plans to hold a ceremony at its operational command in the southern port city of Busan to celebrate the Chungha unit's 10th anniversary on March 19th. 간영우, Arirang News.
Good morning. Most regions had a chilly start to Wednesday as the usual spring cold snap is here. Morning lows have dropped down to below freezing for some parts, including here in the capital, and it's going to feel chilly throughout the day today. But, the brief cold snap is actually welcome as we'll have normal to good air across the nation. Meanwhile, a dry weather advisory is in place for the capital and parts of Gyeongsangdo and Gangwon-do provinces, with strong gusts expected, especially in the parts of the east, so be careful with anything that could start a fire. And taking a closer look at today's daily highs. Daily highs will be a few notches lower than yesterday for most parts, getting up to 8 degrees Celsius here in the capital. Busan and Jeju will top out at 12 degrees this afternoon. Tomorrow morning will feel even colder, going down to -2 degrees Celsius here in the capital. But the brief cold snap will be short-lived as temperatures will go up to double digits by tomorrow afternoon. And there's also some light precipitation in the forecast for the end of the work week. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all the news we have for now. Do stay tuned to us here on Arirang TV, and the usual reminder that our next newscast is coming up at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.
Planning a self-guided tour in Korea? We'll let you peek at the most beautiful hours from dawn to night in Korea. Come to Incheon, a city whose glistening morning is precious. Gyeonggi-do will make your heart throb. Come visit romantic Gyeongnam. Come to Pyeongchang, Korea's top winter destination. Come to Puyo for a memorable experience of history. Explore Busan, a city of mesmerizing waves and ocean. Visit Jeollabuk-do, a place straight out of a movie. Visit Chungjeongbuk-do, a quintessence of well-being tour. Come to Yeosu, a city with amazing sunset and night sea. Visit Daegu, a city of food and style.